I think that's working. Great, thank you all for coming. I was coming through Brixton earlier, and I think 50% of the people are aggro because it's too hot, and there's a strike and there's beeping and everyone's getting in everyone else's way. 50% of people are, I think, on their third mojito. They're already kind of relaxing. It's summer. And then there's you guys who came to learn, which is awesome. So thank you. As Gerald said, we had a very oversubscribed list. I'm not a big fan of public speaking, so for me the strike is not the worst thing that could happen, but it's great that we're recording and it's great that there are people here. The talk itself, the latter half of it, I wanted to actually talk to you specifically about what your particular business problems were, and see if I could actually give some very actionable advice to each person in the room. So the fact that there's a smaller group is actually very beneficial in that way. Okay, so let's jump in. So, digital marketing is obviously a very large subject. We're not going to try and cover all of it. I'm not even going to try and do a full survey. I'm going to keep it all actionable and give you some things that can probably work in your businesses that you can then go ahead and build on. Once you've got something that works and you know, okay, this works for my business, what else can I learn to move forward from that point? So this is a silly but very accurate cartoon. What happens a lot in digital marketing is you'll go to an agency or you'll go to a specialist and they will suggest you do everything. They're like, yeah, you need to do YouTube, you need to do TikTok, you need to do Instagram, why aren't you on Snapchat, etc. Generally, you don't. You need to really focus in on what's going to work for your business, and this is something that is forgotten again and again. We need to start with the business first, and that's where we're going to be grounding this talk. So, I'm going to spend about half an hour on a general introduction talking about what digital marketing is. We're going to demystify it, as the title of the talk has talked about. What exactly is digital marketing and why should you care as a business owner? What's it going to do for your business? Then I'm going to go through 2 use cases. The first one's going to be local discoverability. How are people going to find you? This is particularly useful if you have a physical business, but it's also useful in general. We're going to be talking about SEO. And in particular about local SEO, so using things like Google Maps in that part. Then I'm going to talk about social media in use case 2. I'm going to talk specifically about staffing, which I know is a big issue at the moment. Lots of people are having difficulty finding staff. But in general, in this section will just be about social media and how you can use it to reach various business goals. And then, as mentioned before, I want to do basically rapid fire consults where I'm going to ask you what particular business problems you're having at this moment, and then we're going to quickly go through a strategy and maybe some tools that could be used. So hopefully you can all come away with something actionable moving forward. Okay, jumping straight in. I will talk a little bit about myself, but I'm not a big fan, so I'm glad that you did that for me. I'm good at marketing other things, but when I have to talk about myself, I shut down. So I'm going to jump straight in. What is digital marketing? Why should you care? And how are we going to navigate this? As said before, this is a massive, massive topic. There are now university and master's degree courses in digital marketing, in marketing obviously. It's just a huge field, so to try and cover everything in the next hour and a half is not going to be feasible. This is it's supposedly a useful infographic by a company called Unbounce, and they call it their noob, so their newbie guide to digital marketing. This is them trying to simplify it as much as possible, and as you can see, there's a lot going on there. So these are various strategies around the edge. You've got email marketing, you've got lead gen, you've got organic, so that's search engine optimization, search engine marketing, conversion optimization, analytics, content marketing, pay-per-click, and social media marketing. It's a foreign language, and for a business owner to look at that is very daunting. And to be told you need to be doing all of this for a business owner is not very helpful. So I want to show you, yes, this as a survey, we could be talking about all these things, but that's not going to be the focus of today. This is an example of overload, information overload, which happens so much in digital marketing. I just want to show you another one. This one, this one is wild. Somebody created this thinking it would be useful. So this one here is the different strategies. They've grouped it into different areas. This one, taking it a bit further, and they've said, okay, for each of these strategies, what are the available tools for each one? And you can see it's very small, but they've done this for the last nearly 10 years, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And this one was from 2020. They had 8,000 different tools. So I mean, it looks like a Where's Wally. Let me pull up. There we go. You can zoom in a bit more. So like, just this one is mobile marketing, and you can see there's, I don't know, 200 different tools there. So trying to first choose a strategy, know which strategy to follow, and then know what tool to use is mind-blowing. And I do love that some digital marketer somewhere designed that, and they're like, that's going to help people. There we go. And they didn't stop for a moment to think like, no, that's madness. The fact that we can get it on the screen and you can't read anything is, yeah, it's wild. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. In fact, I've got a deep breath slide. It's too hot outside. We're not dealing with any of that. We're going to instead talk about how we filter everything that's going on, how we filter through the noise and focus on something that's going to work for our business. Okay, so first of all, what is digital marketing? In short, it is just marketing nowadays. So we can pretty much get rid of the digital on the front of marketing. So the term digital marketing was used 15, 20 years ago when digital was new, and it was something you had to differentiate it from normal marketing. Now we tend to just talk about marketing, and it includes all of digital. And then when we talk about the older things, like print, like billboards, we call that traditional. So the term digital marketing itself is not very useful anymore. It is just marketing. Everything we do is online now, and that's been especially the case during the last couple of years. Just this week, Time Out, which is a giant marketing machine for events, basically, they've finally stopped their print runs. They're no longer printing. After 54 years, I think, you can no longer buy a print version of Time Out. Everything's online. And then I think it was last year, ad spend in the US, it had been moving in this direction previously, but it's now flipped from traditional, so television, billboards, print media. It's now flipped to digital, so digital makes up 65% of ad spend in the whole of America. So when we say digital marketing, really we just mean marketing, and it's got a fancy term on the front. But we live online, we do everything online, so the term digital marketing should not be separated from marketing. So that begs the next question. Well, that's great, but what is marketing? So we're digging a little bit deeper. I'm going to defer to this guy. This is a guy called Josh Kaufman, who's a lot smarter than me. He wrote a book called The Personal MBA. It's free. You can actually get all of the contents of this book online. So this is a dreadful cropping. You can't see all his face or all the book. But he's written his book, Personal MBA. Everything's available online for free, but you can also buy a hardback copy. There might be one out there. I wouldn't be too surprised. But he basically goes through different business concepts. I personally have an MBA, and I found this book more useful as an entrepreneur, as somebody who runs my own businesses. So he has defined marketing as the art and science of finding prospects, so people who are actively interested in what you have to offer. The best businesses in the world find ways to attract the attention of qualified prospects quickly and inexpensively. The more prospects you entice, the better off your business will be. We can stick digital on the front of that if we want. We can just say digital marketing is the art and science of finding prospects, but it doesn't really make much difference. All right, so.
How do you want to elaborate on prospects? I feel like it could be a bit of a...
Prospects?
Yeah.
People who will eventually buy from us. We'll keep it simple. Potential customers. That's a good way to think about it. All right, so digital marketing is just marketing. Marketing is getting in front of people who are potentially going to buy from us. We have just seen on that big circular diagram that there's 20 different strategies that we could be using. We then saw on the ridiculous diagram that there's 8,000 plus tools. So it begs the question, all right, how are we going to do this digital marketing? How are we going to do this marketing? How are we going to get in front of our prospects? The good news here is that a lot of the stuff out there, those 8,000 tools, those 20 different strategies, a lot of it's noise. And what we need to do as business owners is really narrow down on what's going to work for us and what's going to work for our businesses. And that's going to be different for everybody in the room, for every different business. So we tend to get trapped thinking about the noise. We tend to think, oh, I have to do TikTok. TikTok's really, kicking off right now, so I need to do dances to get people to my pizza parlor. Maybe. It might be the way, but we shouldn't start by thinking we need to do TikTok because other people are doing it. We need to instead start by thinking, what does my business need? What are my business problems that I need to solve? So yeah, the majority is noise. It's like, you need to do SEO, you should be doing TikToking, influencer marketing is the way to go. And then we layer over that the complexity of a technical language. So PPC, CPC, CPM, LP, ROI, ROAS, like there's all of these different acronyms which are expected to be known. And all of this obfuscates the fact that as business owners, we need to focus on business fundamentals. Right now, the new kind of shiny toys are things like, I'm sure you've heard of some of these, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, which I know you know a lot about, DeFis, decentralized autonomous organizations, Web 3.0, metaverse. A lot of these are very exciting technologies, but just because they're new doesn't mean it's right for your business. So how do we cut through the noise and find the signal, find what's actually going to help us? That's me. Why am I there? Oh, I am meant to be here. Gosh. That is me. So before I tell you how we cut through and what filtering process we're going to use, I should talk a little bit about myself so you know maybe I'm worth listening to. I mean, it's still up to you, but hopefully I'm convincing. So I've had 10 plus, maybe 15 years of digital marketing experience or marketing experience. My first online business was actually about 11. I was selling pirate video games on Yahoo Auctions, which was the precursor to eBay. I got my first cease and desist at the age of 11. I ripped up and hid it from my mum, and I did not touch my piracy things ever again, and I only told her when I was about 25. So my first proper business that wasn't illegal was in Vietnam. As Gerald has mentioned, after university I was young and stupid and didn't know that you're not meant to just go off and start a TV station, and that stupidity / bravery was very helpful because we managed to do it. We got on air within 9 months. We went from 2 people to 250 employees within 2 years, just because I didn't have in the back of my head somebody saying, no, you can't do this, this is silly. And I think that kind of naivety in business is really useful. So sold that business and moved to America, to New York, got my MBA. Not very useful, but it's fine if you want to work in a corporation, if you want to go up the corporate ladder. But for entrepreneurs, for people who own their own business, you don't need to know the majority of it. If you do want a good business book, that personal MBA book that I just highlighted, much better. Unfortunately, I spent quite a lot of money at business school because it's in America. After that, I moved to China. I was in Beijing for 3 years, and this is where I started up my first kind of passive income. You hear passive around digital marketing a lot. So I was helping people to learn Chinese, Mandarin Chinese. In particular, I was building these giant posters, huge posters with the most common Chinese characters on, and then selling them to people across the world. It was a dreadful business because, as you can imagine, it's this A1 or A0 size poster, rolled up. It weighs a ton. It's an abnormally shaped item. It's very easy to fold and bend. If it gets wet, it's destroyed. So I lost a lot of money on these stupid posters. But it was the first online business I'd set up, and I learned a lot doing that. I then switched it also as digital only. So I was selling the files to people, the PDF files, and they could go and print it wherever they were. And I was selling it for about half the price, but I wasn't getting all these returns. I wasn't getting all this chaos from having to deal with physical business. That's when I first realized that online marketing, online business was feasible, especially when I was traveling from Beijing to Mumbai to a friend's wedding who's getting married in Mumbai, and I stopped off in Tibet to meditate for a week, as one does. But the business kept running, which was fantastic. It kept making money, and I came out of the retreat and I had more money, and I kind of realized, wow, there's something there, something powerful. So eventually I came back to London. My mum was happy. I'm originally from Brixton, but I'd been living in Vietnam and America and China and I moved up Brixton Hill, so that was a bit closer for her. She liked that. And I started to help people to set up online businesses, so to be able to free themselves from the office, free themselves from being in a particular location, to be able to create money online overnight. You know, while you're sleeping, you're still making sales, because it's a very powerful tool. So B Street Digital is my main agency, and BBO.show is it's courses and content, etc. And then the current projects are, I won't go into too much detail. The interesting one is I learned to knit during lockdown. So I'm setting up a knitting company. I'm very bad at having a hobby and not turning it into a business. It's a bizarre character flaw. But as I was saying to Gerald before, when I go into a knitting shop with my girlfriend, they immediately go to her, and they assume I'm just like the surly boyfriend, like standing at the back. And then I go up and I'm like asking about the yarn weight and stuff like that. They're like, "Oh my goodness!" It's I have a lot of older ladies who like me in the knitting shops of South London. It's so yeah, that's who I am. So I help people with digital marketing, I help people with online business, but it's from experience, having set up a bunch of businesses and a bunch of online businesses, which if you are ever going to hire an agency or an expert, it's a really useful thing to find out, because a lot of people can learn the expertise of something like search engine optimization or how to run Google Ads, but they're not necessarily coming at it from a business point of view, so they won't be able to connect with your business needs. And necessarily recommend to you what's going to be most useful for your business. They'll just be thinking about the tools, they'll be thinking about the technicalities, rather than your bottom line. So knowing a little bit about this technology and demystifying digital marketing should help you have those discussions if you do ever hire anyone, or if you choose to get into this yourself. So that's me. Where were we? We were talking about cutting through the noise. This is a framework I created. So it was going to be called the Bacon model, but I changed it to Baton. This was going to be community, but calling it the Bacon model was a bit embarrassing, so I had to think of another word. The Baton model is basically a way of thinking through a business and aligning the activities, marketing activities, with what your business actually needs. So I'll just run through it very quickly. At the front, very importantly, we'll get back to this, is business. It's working out what it is, what value your business provides to the world. What value are you providing that you can do better than anyone else out there? What's your competitive advantage? And how do you know it's valuable to the customer? Just because you think it is? Or have you made sales? Can you prove that what you create, what you put out into the world is actually valuable? Very important, and lots of people skip this step. Next step is audience. Now that you have something valuable, you need to go and tell people about it. There's this myth, especially online, that if you have something that's great, people are just going to find it. And that's no longer the case. There's too much noise out there. There are too many competing companies. There's too many people on YouTube or on the various platforms. So it's not enough just to build something that's really good and expect people to come to you. It doesn't work anymore. So we need to go out and find those people and tell them what it is that we have. Importantly, we're not selling to them yet. That comes a bit later. So tribe is once we have the attention, we bring people into our orbit. We're getting them to either sign up for an email list or join our social media or a newsletter, or maybe what other ones? A WhatsApp group, a Facebook group. They are in some way engaging with us. They're not necessarily buying, but they are saying, okay, I'm interested in what you have to say. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to continue to consume the content that you're putting out, whether it's social media, whether it's blog articles. And then offer comes after that. That's when we've got people's attention. We've made them realize, okay, this person's got something I am interested in, something that's worth my attention. Then we move them on to the offer and we make the sale. So what happens a lot in digital marketing in particular is people jump straight to here. They just start running adverts and expecting people to purchase immediately. It's possible, but your product or service has to be stellar to make an immediate sale. So generally, we need to work out what our business is, what kind of value we're actually putting out there, how do we put our best foot forward, and work people through this process of getting to know us and to like us before we make a sale. And then network is just kind of scaling up. So that's either selling more to the same customers, so through new products or new services, or finding new customers by entering new markets or new verticals. The main thing I wanted to show you here, though, in this model is that business comes first. We need to know what our business is, what the value is that we're putting out into the world before we can go and market it, before we can take it forward. And this is how we filter. So when we looked at those 8,000 tools, when we looked at the 20 different areas, we need to start here with business. We need to think about what problems our business currently has, and then, and only then, we can look at strategies and tools that may be able to help us.
Carl, do you mind taking us, just me asking some basic questions?
Please.
So, when you say what value are we actually solving, let's say I'm doing a very obvious, I'm running a very obvious business. Maybe I'm making flowers, right? And I'm selling flowers.
Yep.
Right? Like, what do you mean by value, right? Sometimes, or I run a restaurant like Mabina, right? Like, how do I think about the value in that sense? Because it seems something very obvious that people want, right?
So generally, a customer or potential customer will have a problem they need solving, and by solving that problem with your service or your product, you are creating value. So Mabina, if you have a restaurant, the problem they might have is they're hungry. That's a very basic problem, but it might be something else, depending on if you had a high, like a high-class restaurant. People might want to be seen at a certain place. So their problem is, social recognition. They want to be able to take photos on Instagram, for example. So the value you're putting out into the world is how you are solving people's problems using your offer.
So it makes sense to spend time even to thinking about the value of your problem you're solving, regardless of whether it's small or big, right?
Absolutely. And how are you solving that in a different way to anyone else? So if you have a business that sells flowers, you're automatically up against Interflora, for example. How are you, as let's say you're a smaller business, what is differentiating you and the value that you can provide from someone like Interflora?
And then one more question. So audience and
tribe is a bit confusing for me. So I know you said you were going to call tribe community. So like finding people that care about the thing that I'm offering, right? So you're saying which particular people care about it. So what's audience then?
Easiest way to think about this is audience is, let's say an analog outside would be, I have a billboard that I put up. Audience are just people who walk past and they see it. That's it. There's an exposure, there's an awareness. They haven't acted. They haven't said, oh, actually, I'm interested in that. So on a billboard you might have, here's a number you need to call. They call that up and they get more information. They're now part of the tribe. So that requires an activity, an action on their behalf. So online it might be, you're scrolling through YouTube, you watch a video. That's great, you're part of the audience. If you watch the video and say, oh, I like what they're doing, and then you subscribe, you're part of the tribe. And then you're basically giving the business or the influencer or the marketer permission to continue to talk to you. And permission, I won't get into too much detail here, but permission marketing in online marketing is very important. Because the online world is so big, we want to filter it down and only talk to the people who actually want to hear from us. It's very easy to send out, 500,000 spam emails, but it's not going to work. Like you get very low responses from it. Instead, we want people to come to us and say, I like what you're doing. You do really great flower arrangements. Please send me on a monthly basis your newsletter about flowers, and then maybe I'll purchase from you. They've given us permission to, enter their social media, to get in front of them and continue to market to them.
Thank you. And I actually
realized I didn't even ask you if it was okay to ask questions, but I assume it is. If anyone else wants to ask any questions, please put your hand up.
I don't want to stay too long on this. This is just this is one of the big things I teach. The main thing I want to talk about is that we have to start with business. We need to focus there. and not get caught up in TikTok trends or doing Snapchat filters. They are the shiny toys of digital media. They seem important, they're not. We need to start with what the business is first, and that's super, super important. So you might be sitting here thinking, well, why is he not talking about Snapchat? This is why. It's not going to be relevant for everybody, and instead we have to start with business. So here is the basic filtering process we're going to use to cut through the noise. We start with, okay, what exactly are we trying to do? Do I need more customers? Do I need more people to be aware of my online shop? Do I need, there's probably some other business problems. Do I need to raise money? This could be something else. These are various different business problems that we can apply digital marketing to. Generally, it's going to be, how do I get customers? That's the basic one, but that's not the only thing we can tackle with digital marketing. So business problem. From there, we then work out what the strategies are. So this is where things like search engine optimization or pay-per-click advertising or all of those different acronyms, they tend to come in here. They're the big buckets about different ways we can get out to people and align them to fix our business problem. And then and only then do we start to think about what the tool is we need to use. So my strategy might be social media, but that's huge. That's still a massive, massive bucket full of different networks. And then what am I going to do on that? These are the kind of decisions we make here when we get to tools. So we go from problem to strategy to tool. Whereas what most businesses do, and what most people do, they start here. They do it the wrong way round, and they cross their fingers and they hope that it's going to have some kind of impact here. So they start with Instagram thinking, I'll probably make more sales later. They might do, but as a business owner, we need to start with the business problem and not spend all our time trying to work out the Instagram algorithm or trying to work out what to do on social media. We need to start there and work in this direction. All right, what I'm going to do is do a couple of use cases, specific use cases, because if I'm talking in generalities about social media or about search engine optimization, it's still a bit wide. So I'm going to jump in, do 2 use cases, and then as I talked about earlier, I then want to kind of open it up, because we're a small group, this will be fun. Basically ask, what business problems are you having right now that you think digital marketing might be helpful for? And I'm literally going to think about, okay, based on that, based on my experience, here's some strategies you could look at, and then based on that strategy, here's a couple of tools you could look at. So we'll go around the room and do it rapid fire. But first, I'll do a couple of use cases, which will hopefully walk us through thinking like this. So thinking from problem to strategy to tool, rather than starting with the tool just because it's shiny and new. Okay. So, this will be a specific example. It's not going to be relevant to everyone's business, but the general principles you'll be able to extrapolate out. And also keep in mind, we will be talking about your specific businesses later if you're comfortable. So keep in mind, any questions that come up to do this, we'll loop back to that and we'll be able to apply to your business. That's just a preview of what we'll be doing later. So if you can, start to think of it like this. I'd love to hear what your business type is, what you do, what kind of value or product you put out. What's your current business goal? Are there any problems that you're currently facing? And then time versus money. Generally, the strategies and tools that we use will depend on whether you have more money or more time. If you're at an early stage in your business and you have more time than money, then there are certain, organic social media is useful. Whereas if you have more time, I keep mixing them up. If you have more money, if you have more money than time, then other things are going to be useful. So we'll loop back to this, and I will get money and time right. So, first use case will be, I run a local estate agent, and I need more clients. I need more people who are selling their house. Then we're going to talk about the strategy of SEO. So SEO, I'm going to talk about what that is. It's basically search engine optimization. It's a fancy way of saying get into the top of Google, and I'm going to walk through exactly what that means shortly. Local SEO is for a local business. So if you have a brick and mortar store, local SEO is what you need to be doing. It helps people to find your physical location. And then the specific tools we'll be talking about are Google My Business and Google Maps. Google Maps, most people know because you use it as a user. Google My Business is basically the back end of that. So as a business owner, you use Google My Business to put information on Google Maps. I will go through this shortly though. So search engine optimization. I'm going to be fancy and switch. That worked. Watch this. There we go. It worked. Right. Search engine optimization. When we say search engines, we basically mean Google. Google amounts to about 90, I forget what it is, it's about 96? Yeah, 96% of all search traffic on the internet. So we say search engine optimization, but we mean Google, basically. There's also Bing and DuckDuckGo, yep. Bing's amazing because Microsoft spent years trying to come up, well, with the search engine, but also the name. They wanted something that people wouldn't laugh at, and they came out with Bing, and within minutes, people realized it was an acronym of, but it's not Google. And it's like, millions spent on naming it, and then in seconds, the internet was like, oh, I messed up. So yeah, we mean Google, basically. So what I want to show you here is, I've gone into Google, and I've typed in co-working Brixton. Don't know why, totally random, no particular reason. I want to show you quickly the anatomy of a search page, what you're looking at, what's on the page, just so we can discuss using the right language, because the language here is quite important. If you see at the top here, these top three are adverts. You can see it just says there in little letters ad. So Google used to make that much smaller, and they used to do it in light green, so it was very hard to see. This is how Google makes money. This is why Google's one of the largest businesses in the world, is because of these links at the top. It's run through something called Google AdWords, and it's the revenue driver of Google. So they wanted it to not be obvious, but they've been required to make it more obvious. So these three at the top, that is not search engine optimization. This is something called pay per click, or PPC, you might have heard of. And specifically, this is Google AdWords. I can pay to be up there. And unsurprisingly, WeWork are sitting at the top because they have deep pockets, and they can afford to pay. If I click on that. Yeah, I was about to say, I should click on it. Every time I click on that, that will probably cost them, I'm not sure.
£8.
£8.
Wow.
Oops. £8.
That was the highest I've seen. Yeah.
There we go. That just cost them £8. So for them, yes. Sorry, not sorry. For them, they have worked out that that's worth the money. I'm stuck on WeWork now. This is bad. I hope Gerald doesn't see.
No, you just cost the money. I'm happy with that.
That's true. I'll keep refreshing it. I actually can't get back.
2 finger swipe. Right.
Oh, it's opened it on a new window.
Oh yeah. New tab. Just close that tab.
4 fingers. Oh no, there we go.
Yeah.
That's weird. Probably because it's on a screen. So that is not SEO. That is pay-per-click. So a lot of people don't know that though, and they will just click on whatever's at the top of Google. My mum's like this as well. She's always click on the ads. I'm like, Mum, stop it. Like, they're not necessarily the best ones. So look for co-work in Brixton. I mean, WeWork don't even have a space in Brixton, but they're still buying that ad space. All right, so that's the top, the ads. That is not SEO. Next part is here. This is Google Maps. Now, this is fantastic to be on because look how big that is. It's big and it's colorful and it grabs your attention. If you're on it's not doing it here, but sometimes it will show listings on the side as well. And it takes up a lot of space. A lot of, we literally call it on-screen real estate. The larger your listing is, the more likely people are to click it. So being there in this eye-catching space is fantastic. Number 1 is impact, so that's good. Below this local SEO, finally, halfway down the page, we have the organic listings. So number 1 is Impact Brixton. I did check this before because this could have been embarrassing otherwise. Number 1 is Impact Brixton. Number 2 is the department stores, and then Castle, startup. I don't know what that one is. Oh, that's an article about the other places, and then Kaya, and then Canova Hall. This is where SEO lives. SEO, search engine optimization, is basically the process of trying to get here. And the reason we want to do that is, well, it's worth quite a lot of money. Let me mess around with these. Here we go. I've messed up my screens. It's always the way, isn't it? Well, it's great when you're an IT expert and this happens. I've lost my screen.
You lost your screen here?
No. That's all right, I'll close this one down. There it is. Thanks. Great. It's decided I'm done. There we go. So, this is from last year. Can you see them from the back? You should be able to. If you're in ad position 1, you get a click-through rate, which means the chance of somebody clicking on it, of 2.1%. So of every 100 people who come to that page, 2.1 or 2.1 of them will click the WeWork advert that we saw earlier. So the click-through rate's pretty low, and that's expensive. That costs them £8 potentially. This is what we want. Search position 1. This is the organic search. This is SEO. It's about 40%. 40% of the people who come to this page are going to click on Impact Brixton because of the SEO work that's been done. How do we get there? Now, SEO is a massive, massive topic. It's one of the giant areas of digital marketing. But I mean, based on just on this, you've got a nice logo here. You've got a good call to action, like a benefit in the headline. So instead of just saying co-working, it says best place to work in Brixton, then Impact Brixton. There's a few different things that can be done just to make that more attractive. And then other things will happen on the web page, which also tell Google this is worth showing to people. That's far too much detail. We can't go into SEO as a whole, but the goal here is to get to the top there. So why bother from a business point of view? Getting to the top of Google, it's not just about vanity, it's nice, but we want to get to the top of Google for something like, I've lost it now, but co-working Brixton. If I typed in Impact Brixton, obviously the first result is going to be Impact Brixton, but that doesn't help drive our business. The fact that we're at the top for that is vanity. It's great, it is what it is. That doesn't help drive business because we want co-working Brixton to be where we're at the top of, because the people who are searching this, they want co-working and they don't know about Impact Brixton. These are prospective customers. Anyone who's searching Impact Brixton already knows about Impact Brixton, so why bother marketing to them?
So Carl,
Just recognize something. So that looks like actually that is the definition of the problem from the customer's perspective, right? Is that often the case? Like what they're typing is them expressing their problem in search.
Yes.
So if you can't figure out what your customers is, what problem you're solving, actually think about what they're searching for, and that's a clue to the problem you're solving.
Like this. So Google is a problem search engine. People go to Google when they have a problem. It might not be a very important problem, but it's when you need information. Like it could be, oh, who was that guy in that film? That's still a problem because I saw a film, I saw some actor that I know, and I need to work out who that actor is, so I go to Google. Whereas social media tends to be about interests. You don't go to social media for interests. You go to Google or you go to YouTube. They're both run by Google, so same thing. What you just said about how do we find the problems that people have, we can actually get into the back end of Google's data. So this is how many people are searching each and every month for co-working space Brixton or WeWork Brixton. It's about 250, maybe 300 for this, and then I found some other ones that were roughly connected. So there's about 500 people a month looking for co-working in Brixton or office rental, small office rental Brixton, or things that are connected. Google gives you all of this information. You can get in the back end and see all of this. And as Gerald said, this is a way of seeing what problems people have, and therefore what problems you can solve for them. What I wanted to highlight though is the value of being number one on Google would be, let's say there's 500 searches a month. We know that 40% of them will click on Impact Brixton because it was the top organic result. That means about 200 people a month are coming in from SEO. Let's say of those 200 people, 10% might come in and visit. I don't know the numbers. So that would be 20 tours of the facility. And then of that, maybe 25% convert, and that would be 5 new members. Obviously, if we were doing this properly, we'd get the real numbers, we'd work out how much it's worth. But that's, I mean, how much?
8 new members this month.
8 new members a month. 5 of them might have come from SEO. We'd have to look at the numbers. But you get an idea of how valuable SEO, being at the top of Google, can be for your business. Because, I mean, how much is a membership? 100 and something.
Average 140 pounds.
140, so I can't do the maths fast enough.
Yeah,
What's that?
£500.
8 grand a year, roughly. Yeah, so it's worth a lot. One thing that's really good about SEO in particular is that it's sticky. So if I'm doing something like running adverts on Facebook or running adverts on Instagram, the moment I turn off those adverts, people stop seeing my company. Prospective customers stop knowing about me, so I have to keep putting money into advertising. With SEO, search engine optimization, once you've got that listing, once you're up at the top, you stay there. It's a very slow process to get there, but once you're there, you stay up there. This is one of my websites, so helping people learn Chinese. I haven't touched this website for 8 years, and I still own the second position for Learn Chinese Character course. That brings in about 2,000 people a month into my website, and I have not touched that. So you do a lot of upfront work with search engine optimization, and then you can kind of leave it. And the bigger your page is, the more people are coming to your page, the more Google thinks that it's a good page and therefore shows it to more people. So it's a virtuous cycle. So the upfront work's well worth it because it's a very strong investment for future traffic. I'm being beaten by Coursera, but that's fine because they're like a massive company, so I can live with that. Just another quick example. This is, I purchased an estate agency back in November down in Herne Bay. It's lovely down there. This is an estate agency that I purchased. We were not on Google at all. We've managed to get into the second position on Google for Herne Bay for, I think this was Herne Bay Estate Agent or something like that. And we are the third in Google Maps. From this, we make about £10,000 a month just by getting into the right places, making sure people are seeing us, and then converting those searches into sales. So search engine optimization is very valuable for your business if you know what problems people are having and how to get in front of them. What I want to do is, because I can't do the whole of search engine optimization, I want to show you like 4 very quick steps that as a local business you can just do. It won't cost you anything, but it will get a very solid foundation for doing later search engine optimization. This is mainly going to be for physical businesses. No, you can still do it for online businesses. The difficulty is not having an address, so you don't really show up on Google Maps as much. You need to have an address to be on Google Maps.
We solved that problem.
You've preempted.
Your company here.
You've preempted me. I was about to mention this. I'm not just selling Impact Brixton, but buttering you up. Yeah. So there's 4 basic steps. First, you need to claim your Google My Business listing. Lots of people don't do this. You might be on Google Maps already, your business, but you need to actively say to Google, hey, this is my business. And then you get access to the ability to edit that listing, to add photos, to manage the reviews, etc. I'm going to show you how to do that shortly. Second, we need to optimize it. We need to make sure we've got all the right information on there so Google knows to show our business to people. Third, you need to have a review strategy. And fourth is something called citation building, which is a bit more technical, but is very valuable. Right, we're just going to jump in. So first up, claim listing. The easiest way is you can go on Google Map. If your business is already there, just search for your business, and then there will be a little claim listing button on Google Maps. If you click that, it takes you into a process where Google will basically seek your information. So they'll either send you a postcard, which is very very old-fashioned, and I do love. They send you a postcard that has a 5-digit code on it. You have to write that back to them, and then they verify your listing. Or you can do it by telephone. So if you have a business phone, they can call you up and verify. If you do not have an address, you can set it up at a virtual office. So this is what you were alluding to. Yeah. So if you need an address for your company, so I have a few of mine at solicitors, for examples. That's fine. But having a virtual office is a nice way to do it as well. So yeah, either find it on Google Map and then claim listing. If it is not on Google Map, if it's a brand new business or there's no presence at all, you can create a listing. I'll send the slides out later, but it's basically business.google.com/create, or you can just, I'm saying Google so many times it's sounding ridiculous. You can either just Google create Google Map listing. If you have the problem, there we go. If you have the problem of not knowing how to create a Google Map listing, Google it. So yeah, you need to do this. Lots of businesses do not do this, but this is the first step to saying to Google, hey, this is a legit business, and I want you to show this to more people. Second, optimizing the listing. Once you have access to your business, once you've claimed it, you will get access to this. It's called Business Profile Manager. It looks quite complex, it's not really. Basically, you have the ability to post. You can add info, you can see insights about how many people are searching for you, for example. You can manage your reviews. So when people review you, this allows you to write back to them and tell them why they're wrong. People can directly message you via Google. You can upload photos, that's very similar to posts. You can even sell directly via Google, or even set up like a micro website. Like, you can do a lot of stuff in here. So once you get access, just have a poke around. They also do good tutorial videos. What we need to do once we have access here is we add as much information as possible. The more information Google has about your business, the more discoverable you are. Because Google needs to know about your business in order to connect you with the people who are searching for a business like yours. So you need to make sure you have your opening times, your service areas. This is really important if you are a local business. Your address, hours, etc. Things like this, your description. They give you a small area where you can really write about your business, and this is where you can hit kind of pain points. You can use words you know people are searching for you with. So for impact, we might say, the ultimate co-working space in Brixton, offering private offices, shared desk, conference rooms. We'd make sure to add all of those words so that Google knows our product offering. But generally, we just want as much as possible. This is just to show you kind of what you can see in the back end once you have your business set up. Google will tell you, okay, this is how many people are searching within your area, within your category. There's 1,500 searches. Of that, 1,100 of them came through search, 700 of them came through map listings. It gives you all of this information. Right, next up is reviews. You need a review strategy. You need to actively ask customers for reviews rather than wait for them to review you. The reason is the people who go out of their way to review tend to be difficult. If anyone runs a service business or a restaurant, you'll either have people who are very excited and they just love adding reviews, or the opposite end, the difficult people. So what you kind of need to do to balance those difficult people out is just ask the people who have had a good experience, just ask them, please, can you leave a review? I mean, it's so simple, but what that does is dilutes the 1-star, 2-star angry reviews, so that they just disappear. Once you have 100 5-star reviews, yeah, sure, you might have 1 or 2 1-star reviews. It's fine, because it's such a small percentage at that point. So here with the estate agent, we went a step further. We're actually number 1. When you go into Google Maps, we're number 1 now, and we have the highest number and star rating on Google. The way we did this, we directly incentivized it with our agents. We said, for every Google review you get, good or bad, we'll give you 50 quid. Because we know the value of this. We know how much business this can bring us. So we had, back in November, I think we had like 20 reviews. We got a lot of reviews very quickly. And all that was incentivizing it so our staff would say, hey, if you had a good experience, please leave a review, here's the link. That's it. Very simple. But it was proactive rather than waiting for people to do us a solid. Because we're business, like, you know, most people will spend their time complaining about us. Okay, the fourth one is citations. I don't want to get too technical. Again, this is one of these scary diagrams that a digital marketer has created, and they've put this online thinking this would be helpful to people, and it looks like the, you know, the crazed scrawlings of a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, the red string like this. It's like, this will help people. It's like, what are you thinking? You've got primary feeds, secondary feeds, tertiary feeds, speculative feeds. It's like nonsense. Basically, what a citation is, it's like a reference. You want your listing to be in as many different kind of business directories as possible. So think about the old days when we had Yellow Pages and Thomson Local, etc. You would write to them, I guess you'd write to them, I don't know how you did it. You would talk to them and they would put your business in their directory. Citations are very similar. They're just online. So, I mean, you've got things like Companies House, so if you're registered, that's automatically going to connect you. You've got Google, Foursquare, Thomson Local apparently, Royal Mail, Facebook. You want all of these different businesses to have information about your business. So you want them to have your name, your address, your phone number. They're the big three. So you can very laboriously go to each of these places and set up profiles. It takes forever. Instead, you can use something called Bright Local or White Spark. They are citation building services. This Bright Local is $2 per citation, and you can see it looks for all your existing citations. It looks for ones that might be duplicate or fake. Sometimes your competitor will create another citation away from your store, and that damages your listing, so it will find them. It will look for ones where maybe your telephone number's different in different listings, and it will help you remedy them. It kind of does all that automatically for $2 per citation. If you went to an SEO agency, they'd say, yeah, we'll do this for you, and then charge you a lot of money. Instead, use something like Bright Local, get 100. That's more than enough, depending on the size of your business. That's a $200 investment, and you're set. The main idea is you need more than your competitors, and you can use a tool like this to see what your competitors have, and then just get a bit more. So that's worth checking out. I'm not going to go into the details of citations because it's very boring and it looks like that. So just go to Bright Local, give them $100, $200, and you're good. Okay, so they're the 4 basic steps for setting up your local SEO and your SEO properly. If you have a physical business, they'll be really useful. So claiming your business, listing, optimizing it, setting up a proactive review strategy, and doing a bit of citation building. These are free. You might need to spend a few $100s here, so 100 quid. It's fine. Again, if you can rank up and get those listings on Google, it's worth it. Okay, yeah. Is that all of SEO? No. SEO is massive. If you do want to learn, there's a very good guide created by moz.com. This is from that guide. This is one of the few guides where they do actually use everyday language. They still have nonsense diagrams like this, but it's a bit more digestible. So definitely check that out. If you're thinking about doing SEO yourself, this is a great place to start. Or if you're going to hire someone and you don't want them to take the mickey, this is also a good way to educate yourself. Okay, how are we for time? What time do we start?
It would be good to have a break at some point.
Yep. Should we have a little break? We'll have a little break, then I'm going to come back, do this use case, which is much shorter, and then we'll go to questions.
I'm just saying there's one more left in the shop, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's plastic.
How is that ethical?
I I think it will be some kind of recyclable material.
It's probably not plastic.
Bamboo, you say?
Bamboo.
They'd get in trouble if it was plastic.
Yeah. It's not saying, but one more left. And
Do we
We can start.
have everyone? Okay. Cool. So,
We have one or two people that just joined us.
jolly
So it's
good.
good just to get a 60-second recap of bacon. Just bacon. Batter.
Oh, batten.
It was supposed to be bacon.
It was meant to be bacon.
I feel like it should be bacon.
Bat in the South London accent as well. Batten. Batten, mate. Yeah, it was almost bacon. So what we've been talking about is how, for all digital marketing, we need to start with business first. We need to work out what the actual business problem is before we dive headlong into setting up a TikTok or using various tools. So this is a basic framework of starting with the business, then working out what the value your business provides is, taking that value out to an audience using social media, using Google, whatever it is, bringing people into your kind of sphere of influence, whether it's following your YouTube channel or signing up for a newsletter or coming in store for something free. You're just bringing them in. They're not necessarily buying yet, but they are doing some kind of action, followed by a sale. So that's a nice easy one. That is your first sale, making a purchase. And then network is scaling up and growing your business. So we just covered that briefly. What we spent the most of the time doing was looking at local discoverability, so using search engine optimization, in particular local search engine optimization, so getting to the top of Google using things like Google Map. And where are we now? Who got rum, by the way, and who didn't get rum, more importantly? Disappointed.
I also want to say to everyone that Hannah just reminded me that the next workshop is specifically SEO only. So if anyone, I know Kyle's covering broadly digital marketing.
No, I talked to her. She's doing wide SEO. So
She's doing wide SEO, correct?
So this alludes to that. This is a really good guide to SEO, which you shouldn't read if you're going to that workshop, or maybe you do together. But SEO is massive. It's a gigantic topic. So that's going to go into a lot more detail on that particular area.
Date, Hannah?
7th of July.
Thank you.
2 weeks today.
Cool. So I want to switch gears and look at a second use case. We've talked about search. So as Gerald mentioned earlier, search is about problems. You have a problem, you go into Google, and you solve your problem using Google. Social media is very different. You generally don't go to social media because you have something that you're looking for in particular. You generally just, you just turn on the social media app and you basically look at what is given to you. It's based on interest. The algorithms on social media want to keep showing you something they think will be interesting to you, so you spend more time on their platform and they can serve more adverts and therefore generate money. So it's not problem-based. It's not about solving a problem that a customer might have. It's just about general interest. So social can be used for a whole range of different things. I want to focus on staffing, just because it's a bit more unusual, and I know it's something that a lot of businesses are struggling with right now. But this can be applied to making sales. It can be applied to various different business objectives. So once again, we're using this basic filtering methodology, where we're first starting with what is the problem our business has. We're not starting here at the tool, we're starting with the problem. All right, so the problem here is I can't find staff, and I want to make my business an attractive place to work so I can attract staff to my business. The strategy is I'm going to use social media to draw employees to my business, and the specific tools are going to be things like Instagram, LinkedIn, and any other platforms where potential employees are hanging out. Now, you might be thinking, wait, is this marketing? Surely marketing is about customers. Marketing we can use in lots of different directions. It's getting in front of people we want to perform an action for us. That action might be handing us money in order to buy a product. It might be setting up a partnership. It might be getting them to finance our business. It might be getting them to come and work for us. We use marketing in all of these different spheres. I actually had a client recently who, they're a large engineering firm, I think probably low 8 or 9 figures revenue, like a big boy company. They had no problem securing business because of their word of mouth, because they had great projects. They had too much business. The problem they had is they didn't have staff, and nobody wanted to work for them because, quite frankly, they were a bunch of old white dudes, and it was a very unattractive place to work. They were trying to get young, more diverse workers to come and work for them. Nobody was biting, because they would go into an interview and they'd just kind of see all these old dudes, and it just turned off. So they wanted me to do the marketing for them to attract potential employees, to make it look like a great place to work, which is an interesting. We couldn't fix the fact that they were old white dudes, basically. I put it that way. Yeah. We did talk about TikTok. They brought up TikTok. They're like, "Shall we do TikTok?" And I was like, "For fuck's sake!" It's like, but it's amazing. This is a company making hundreds of millions, and they were great at that particular domain. But then when it came to marketing, they're like, "We should do TikTok," and it's like, absolutely not. So this was the cartoon we put up earlier. Well, I put up earlier, which is very similar. So even working with a giant client like that, lots of people think we should just be doing everything. We should do every single channel. We should be on YouTube. We should be on Facebook. We should be on mobile apps, Pinterest, etc. But they don't think about what it is they're actually going to do with these apps. What is the business use for this? So what we're going to do is go through that. Sorry, just lost my place. There we go. Yeah, so literally they did ask me about TikTok, which was amazing. The normal process a lot of companies have with social media is this. They have a realization like, oh, we need to be on social media. This is generally because they've seen a competitor doing a video on Instagram or something like that, and they're like, shit, we need to do that. We need to do this. No thought. It's all ego-driven. So we need to be on social media, and then it's like, I've got a nephew or I've got a niece, and he or she has got like 1,000 followers on Instagram. They know social media. They hire this poor young person who doesn't know what's going on, but they take the paycheck. So this young person gets brought in to do Instagram or to become an influencer for the company. They post photos for a few weeks. They try and jump on some trends, Harlem Shake, Ice Bucket Challenge, whatever. Nothing happens. Like for the business, they're like, why aren't we getting any more sales? Or why is nobody applying to join our company? And then they come to the conclusion that social media doesn't work for our company. It doesn't work in our industry. And it's like, maybe not. So what we need to do instead, and very boring, but it's always business first. We need to work out what is the business goal we need to deploy social media for? What are we actually trying to do with it? Then we're going to define and locate the audience we want to reach. Where are they hanging out? And then we're going to post targeted content. And this is important, we're going to spend a little bit of money to make sure those people see it. That's probably the biggest takeaway I want to get to about social media in particular. As a business owner, you need to spend a little bit of money. It's going to be an investment. So we're going to go from this, somebody's cousin running the social media, doing a few influencer posts and nothing happening. We're instead going to start with the business and then work out the strategy and work out the tools like we did with Google. This is going to be a lot quicker, by the way, because I want to open it up to questions. So social media can be used to get in front of people for a variety of reasons. Most of the time it's going to be customers. So building awareness amongst a customer base, that's kind of like the default. But it could also be partnerships. Let's say as a digital marketer, I wanted to get in touch with other digital marketing agencies overseas, for example. Let's say I'm looking at setting up a Dubai office. I might put out content about my digital marketing expertise and make sure people in Dubai in a similar industry see that content. So therefore, when I go and meet them, they already know who I am, they already recognize me, and that trust has been built up. So partnerships is another thing you can do with social media. Capital, raising money. I do a lot of this with clients who are in property. and they need to raise money from angel financing. So they need to go on social media and basically show their expertise in property, so that they have a track record online about, the projects they've done, about how much money they've made their investors, etc. So that's a really useful use. And then staffing, this is what I want to talk about today, is making it look like a decent place to work, and not an old-fashioned company. So step one is actually work out what you're using the social media for. Most people will do it either for vanity or ego, or because they've seen competitors doing it, or they just feel this is something that people should be doing, or we should have an Instagram, we should have a TikTok, and there's no actual thought there. So you need to work out what your actual objective is. Step two, we need to go and locate your audience. Now you might know where they're hanging out already if you're already on social media. If you don't, one of the best things to do is a competitor audit. Basically, we're going to see what other people are doing and where they're doing it, and then copy it. It's copying, we can call it emulation, we can call it best practices, but we are working out what's working for other companies who are similar to us, and we're going to go and do the same thing, and we're going to do it better. So look at what your competitors are doing. Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Where have they got their largest followings? Chances are that's where your potential customers are going to be as well. Second, we can look at demographics. What are the demographics of the people you're trying to reach? If you're trying to reach, this happened with the engineering company, they needed, the people they wanted for staffing were mainly in their 30s, they all had advanced degrees or 2 master's degrees, some of them, the majority of them, and they still wanted to do TikTok. There's a demographic mismatch there, because TikTok tends to be very young. It tends not to have that many master's degrees either. So that wasn't the right match for them. If neither of these help you narrow down which platform you should be looking at, Google is a good place to start. Google, again, you can solve all problems. Literally search your industry and then the word influencer, and you'll see the biggest influencers in your particular industry. What are they on? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they on Snapchat? Again, they've built followings there, so that's where you need to be building up your following as well.
Carl, when you say what are they on?
Often they're on all of them, right? So what do you mean by what are they on?
So somebody who's on all of them is probably doing repurposing. They might even have a team who takes their content from a primary channel and then gets it onto the other channels. I would say that the people who are on everything is because their main job is being on social media. For a lot of companies, so let's say a restaurant, the restaurant is in the business of being a restaurant first and foremost, and not being social media influencers. So I would look for their primary location, their primary channel, and that's probably going to be the one to go for. So most people will have a primary, so it'll either be Instagram or it will be Facebook generally.
So you're saying look at where the numbers are?
Yes. Yeah, although the numbers can't always be trusted because you can buy fake followers, but it's generally a good place to start. What's helpful though, if you look for your industry, you can find out where the majority of them are. So yeah, maybe a handful of the influencers are on every single platform, and they're going to be less useful. But if you find, let's say you're in the fashion industry, and you look up a list of fashion influencers and their primary, the largest followings on Instagram, that would suggest Instagram is the channel you should be looking at. But generally you're going to need to do all of these to hone in on it. And what we're trying to do here is find one platform that we can focus on, and that becomes your primary. Later, sure, we can scale out to others, but we really want to nail down one, get that working for us, and then produce for different platforms. And then finally, if you have no idea, it's probably going to be Facebook and Instagram, purely because of numbers. Facebook and Instagram, or Meta, together have about 2.5 billion users now. So there are a lot of communities on here just because of the pure size of it. So if you're totally lost and none of the other 3 strategies work, it's probably going to be Facebook as as your social media platform of choice. Okay, once you have located where they are and set up what your actual business goal is, we need to produce content for that platform for that particular goal. And again, this is where people kind of fall down because they don't have a strategy. They'll just take photos or videos of whatever's happening. If there's a Christmas party, it will be take a photo of that, stick it online. That may or may not help with the social media strategy. We're all guilty of this. I do it as well. We tend to chase things like likes, whether or not that has any impact on our business at all, whether or not that has any return on investment. So if you can, create posts that are aligned with your business objective, which we defined in step 1, only for the channel that we defined in step 2. The big takeaway though, and this ties into everything, is as a business owner, you aren't just on social media for the sake of being on social media. You're there to drive revenue or to make partnerships. So you should be looking at boosting or advertising your content. A lot of people spend a lot of time making social media content, but they don't spend any money. So they'll post a lot of different posts online, hoping that something's going to go viral or something's just going to take off. It doesn't really happen anymore, especially for businesses. Instead, Facebook and Instagram in particular are pay to play. As a business, you need to put a little bit of budget behind it, and you go from having 2 or 3 people watch your video to having 1,000. And it requires very small budgets, like we're talking of £5. So if you are posting once a day for a month, we're talking about £150 over the month. And that's money that's much better spent rather than you just trying to create more content. And this is a trap lots of businesses fall into. They think they can just create more and become popular. So they're wasting their time on creation rather than saying, no, hang on, we're going to make less. We're going to put a small budget. I'm going to put £5 behind each post. It doesn't need to be much more than that, and that's enough to get thousands of views instead of the handful you would usually. And if you've aligned that with an actual business purpose on the right channel, you'll start to see results. So what I see so often is people just digging deeper and deeper, making more and more and more, expecting things to change. It won't. So the biggest takeaway would be ready to spend a little bit of money. Start thinking about social media as a marketing channel. You are using social media as a business, not as a user. So it becomes a very different calculus. Because we are also used to using social media as a way of communicating with people, as a way of consuming content, but not as a way of pushing our business. We have to change that mindset. Because on Facebook, the users are the product, and we need to convert ourselves to become the customer, which does require a bit of a change. Okay. We just talked roughly about paid social media, so that's putting a bit of budget behind. Organic is the term for free. So you put some content online and people will view it. It does work, but first you need to generally use paid social media to build up an audience. Once it's large enough and you have thousands or tens of thousands of followers, you have enough people who are already following you, they're already in your tribe for organic to take off. But trying to do organic by itself, you either have to be extremely attractive or have some kind of skill. Most of us, when we're running businesses, our businesses are less interesting to other people than they are to us. So we need to give it a bit of budget to help it along, especially if you're, 6 old white engineers. They did have the money to put into it, to be fair. Okay, so that's all I wanted to cover on social media. The biggie being you need to spend a little bit of cash behind it.
Yeah.
Hi there.
Hi.
So a question regarding to paid advertising.
Yes.
I've used it a few times on social media, Facebook and Instagram mainly. What events was I doing? Mainly for events. I run an events company, or one of the things I do. And I think when I first did it, I was quite impressed, especially with Facebook, because I got a lot of analytics. It gave me, 38-year-old women from that area is who I need to target, as it were. Or that's who's engaged with it the most.
You get a lot, yeah.
But it didn't actually necessarily translate to sales.
Yep.
And then more increasingly, recently, I've been speaking to a lot of people about this because it's something I've actually been actively searching for, someone who knows what they're doing on social media. And I keep hearing the same thing from different people, that nowadays you're wasting your money on Facebook and Instagram unless you've got quite a robust strategy alongside the paid advertising.
So there's a slight difference between paid social media and paid advertising. Paid advertising is when we're going straight out to somebody and saying, buy my product or sign up for my event. That's hard.
Right.
That costs a lot of money because you need to make the sale immediately. They don't know who you are, and you're suddenly jumping in front of them and saying, hey, buy this. It can work if your product is really good and you get your targeting right, but it's going to be expensive. Part of the purpose of the baton system is we're using things like social media earlier on to get in front of people so they like us first. So we're putting out content, we're putting a little bit of money behind it. We tend to call it a boost rather than an advert.
Yeah, that's what they call it on there.
Yeah.
Like 60 quid at a time.
So yeah. So we're putting a boost out. That's not going to lead to sales immediately. That's going to start building up a group of people who know us and then start to trust us and like us. And then once that group is large enough, we can start to run adverts to them. But it's a slow burn. And if you just jump in front of them and make the sale too early, it turns people off. So we use paid social media at a low level, £5 for each post, just to build up that traction. And then when we have, like, let's say 1,000 followers, we can then do something called remarketing, which is we say to Facebook, all right, instead of talking to these 500,000 people out here, which we were doing with our boosts, I know these 1,000 people have watched a lot of my videos. I know they've come to my blog. I know that they've downloaded my ebook. There's 1,000 people here. I just want to send adverts to these people. That's it. I'm not sending adverts for the 500,000 people that we started with, instead to this little group. So we move people along from here. This might be 500,000 people that we're sending our, general content about. Okay, we're just launching a new, we're doing a workshop. We're doing 5 workshops. You should check it out. It's free, so we're not asking them to do anything. Maybe we're asking them to come and look at the schedule page. That's kind of it. That's what we do here at the early stage. Once they have committed a little bit, maybe they've come to the website. We know, and we can track them using Facebook or Google. We know they've come to the website. So let's say we talk to 500,000 people here, and 50,000 of them come to the website, 10%. We can then run adverts to that 10%, and that's called remarketing. And then it becomes more and more cost effective because you aren't targeting a huge group of people. It's a very small select group of people who have already shown interest. So that's how we generally run Facebook ads in particular. It's this kind of escalation. So we start wide and we get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then there might only be one person at the end who buys. But when we're targeting them with the buy message, it's done very cost effectively because we did the work above. It's a big topic though, remarketing, but it's extremely powerful. It's the main thing what digital marketing is good for. What you need is a funnel, basically. A sales funnel is a big idea, which I can't get into too much detail, but it's basically, ideally you have something at the top, which is free. Then you have a low-cost product. Let's say it's £10, then you're going to have a higher cost product, and then you have escalations of more and more expensive products. And at each stage of this funnel, you have less people, but you can sell them higher cost products. It's a big area though. But remarketing is very, very powerful. Remarketing is the main benefit that digital marketing has over traditional marketing, because I know who's looked at my advert. And if I know they've watched my advert once, I can then go back to them with a second advert for a lower cost. And it gets very powerful.
So Carl, just to be clear, you're suggesting that it's building an audience, particularly on social media, specifically, let's say it's Instagram,
Yep.
isn't necessarily about boosting a post to get more followers to sell, to retarget to them later. It's the fact that they just watched that ad means that they are now in your audience, right? That's enough.
If somebody's watched my video on Facebook for more than 2 seconds, I can then send them more stuff. 2 seconds on Facebook counts as engaged. Because it used to be 3 seconds, and then they're like, no, that's a bit long. So now it's 2 seconds. That means they are interested in what I have to say. Because most people are like, no, no, no. If they literally stop for 2 seconds, their data is plucked out by Facebook, and then Facebook's like, okay, this person's interested in what you have to say. If you want to send them more stuff later, we've got this bucket here of these people. You can talk to them. Yeah, it's wild that it's only 2 seconds, but that,
But we need to purchase the data from Facebook, no?
no. And it's anonymous as well. You can't purchase it. You used to be able to get the emails out of it. You can't anymore. But
We just contact the Facebook to pay for such remarketing.
yeah, it's a closed system. So you pay Facebook for the initial advert. That builds up something called a custom audience, which is your bucket of the people who engaged. And then you pay Facebook again to talk to those people.
Yeah, because we do that in Google advertisement, and we did note that a lot visiting to our website, but they just don't register the email, and we would like to do the remarketing. So does it mean that we just contact Google directly for that remarketing?
Yes. So if, without getting too technical.
We cannot have the data, the customer's data.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
They won't give you the data. So if somebody's come to your website and you have the right Google tools sitting on your website.
Yeah, we equipped that Google tool.
Okay, so Google has that information about who came to your website. So let's say 100,000 people came to your website last month. You can now send them adverts on Google.
Okay, but from the report, we can only see.
How about the range? I mean, which country and also the percentage of the ages, but we don't have the detailed data.
No, you should be able to get directly to them. So you're probably looking at Google Analytics. You need to look in Google AdWords. It's a different product. But you can connect Google Analytics to Google AdWords, and then anyone who's visited your website is tagged by Google Analytics. That information is sent to Google AdWords, and then Google will very generously take your money to send adverts to them.
Oh, so you mean Google advertisement, there is such detailed data. Can I reach out to such data directly or no?
Not directly, no, because of data protection.
I got you, thank you.
Yeah.
I just wonder whether you're going to.
Can you use the mic, please?
I just wonder whether or not you was going to touch on lead capture, because that's pretty answer that question. That if you do manage to get somebody to come to your website, you're absolutely right. You can't ask Google for their email address, but if you have an email capture form on their website.
I provided that form, but I mean the registration rate is not so high actually.
So,
I actually got 200 registrations.
so with lead capture, it's when you bring somebody to your website, maybe they're not going to buy from you immediately. Most people won't. But if you can get their information, if you can get their telephone number or their email, that's still great. That's like a big step in the right direction. So we call that a lead capture form. You've seen them on websites. It would just ask for your name and your email, maybe your telephone number. Generally, if you're not getting high conversion, you need to bribe people. So we use something called a lead magnet, which is like, here's something free I'm going to give you, a white paper, a report, whatever it is, something of value. I'm going to give you something in exchange for your email. And you word it like, oh, we're going to send you a free ebook, but we have to send it to your email. So if you just give us your email, then we'll send that over to you. So that's generally how we would capture the actual information, and that's how we take them out of Google. Because otherwise, if we want to run adverts, we're totally reliant on Google or Facebook or whoever. If we can get their email address, we can do a lot more. We can do email campaigns. If we get their telephone number and the right permissions, then we can call them. But no, we can't, unfortunately, for us marketers, we can't just get the information out of Google. Cool. So I actually just wanted to open it up. As I said at the beginning, if you have a specific business problem, I'm very happy to basically just give you a couple of sentences saying, oh, based on that problem, this is what I would probably do. Or these are 2 or 3 things you could do. So give you a strategy and maybe a couple of tools to look at. So yeah, like mini consultation. So anyone who does fancy that, I guess we'll pass around the microphone.
Cool.
And hopefully it's good advice. I should probably have some kind of warranty. Yeah.
Not responsible.
On behalf of Thrive,
Yeah.
yes,
Don't listen to this idiot. Oh God, no.
Yeah, as I was saying before, I've got a Congolese and West African restaurant. The main sort of marketing we use is on social media, so Instagram and TikTok are the channels we mainly use. And I basically, my main problem is how to convert the engagement that we get on social media into bookings. So I think I need to be better at like calls to action, but I also don't, like you were saying, I don't really have a funnel. I don't really have a system for enticing them to book. So when people show that initial interest, there's nothing to like sustain their attention, I think, anyway. And then a slight secondary problem is what you were saying before, hiring. That would be good too.
So with the restaurant, there is that complexity or that simplicity of they either come to the restaurant or they don't. There's not that many other things you can do. Although in the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, lots of restaurants have set up things like subscription services, meal subscriptions. So there are alternatives to come into the restaurant. My big question would be, when you are running social media, is there any geolocation targeting? Or are you just going for everybody in the UK?
No, so I narrow it down to, I've tried like sort of different demographics, or but like this guy was saying here, I don't feel like I've seen a huge sort of impact from like paid ads. I feel like for me, the biggest sort of direct like result I've seen has been actually from inviting influencers and bloggers and finding the right people, because they've already built up a base of the demographic. So I find bloggers who have the customer base that I'm looking for, and invite them to the restaurant. So it basically costs me nothing, or very little. And then some of those have gone on to get loads of like way more views than I could ever afford to pay for. And then sometimes I do see like a direct result in terms of bookings. So for me, that's been a lot more effective and sort of like financially viable as well. But it's sort of like, when that buzz is there, what can I do to make the most out of it, basically?
I have done this with a coffee shop once before, where we were reaching out to influencers because, for that reason, as partners, they had much larger bases in customers that we already. So they have people who are potential customers already. What we then did, though, was we said, all right, you come in, you get free coffee, free food, you post it. We're then going to give you some budget to boost it. So we were promoting the influencers' campaigns. So yeah, they have that organic reach. So maybe they're getting out to a couple of thousand people. We were saying, all right, no, we're going to give you 250 quid to make sure that gets out to 1 million people. So on their side, they're like, yeah, this is great. I'm getting money to promote my stuff. On our side, it meant that the content they had created with us and for us was getting seen by many, many more people. So that's a spin on paid advertising, but you're just doing it through their account. So it is either on trust, literally like, here's 250 quid, can you run an advert? Or we would, from a technical point of view, we could become an account manager and then spend the money, and we could see all the results. But that worked really well.
I think I've also just answered my own question, but I think also just come up with, I could also give the influencers like a code. So it's like, if you book with this code, then like they do for all other sort of products, you get like a discount. And
then they're winning, their followers are winning. They're not seen as a shill by their followers. Yeah,
they're offering something. Yeah. But then there's also that call to action. So rather than just being like, oh, that looks nice.
Yep. And at the same time, if you come up with a strategy to get people to also follow you, so all these influencers are coming over to you. So maybe it's you're going to put a bit of money behind the influencer's post. You're going to give that influencer a code, but that person coming to visit you also has to follow your Instagram, for example. And if they show they've followed you and they give you the code, they get a free whatever.
Because like competitions and stuff and like giveaways are great for that, but like obviously you can't do those like
with
every
food.
week. You
Yeah.
can do it with food, I have done,
You
but
can
you
do it,
can't,
but-
do it all the time. Otherwise, it kind of loses its, effect.
Cool.
Cheers. I got a question. Just on that one though, I was going to wonder if you've thought about running campaigns. The only reason why I said that is because I remember during lockdown, I don't know how, I don't know why, but I remember kind of scrolling and Friday would come along and you'd see all this like Fish Friday and shrimp and prawns and all this kind of stuff and like all these amazing pictures. And I remember ordering for Friday, just ordering from this place. I'd never seen them before. I ended up having to go and pick it up and ended up meeting the person who turned up on a bicycle in a petrol station. Yeah, which I bought the food from. And I was thinking, when I was there, I was like, in fact, who the hell are you? Why am I buying food from you? But clearly their campaign worked very well because they showed all this amazing looking food and like they had scarcity. I guess you've got a restaurant, right? So you've got inbuilt scarcity. There's only so many people you can have at any one time. So, but what they did, they ran a campaign saying, okay, it's Fish Friday. We have X only limited amount of deals, or we're gonna supply it, and you need to order now. And this is the price. If you don't buy it now, it goes up and all that kind of stuff. And so, I'm sure many other people bought it as well. I ended up buying from these people I never heard before. But I think the whole point is that the campaign is what actually worked, and they had inbuilt scarcity into it, and that's what kind of drove me to kind of get it. So that was just something that I kind of thought of when I was thinking of when you were talking about your thing. But I guess my question really was, I'm on the kind of budget time versus money equation. I just wanted to know what I'm actually looking for. I'm looking for somebody to help run Facebook ads, setting up the webinars, and like click funnels in terms of like sales funnels. So I guess there's two questions. One, either do you do that? Is that something that you guys do? And if you don't, is there any kind of recommendations as to what you should be looking for if you want somebody to do those three very specific things: funnels, webinars, and Facebook ads, to actually manage that process?
Sure. Yes, we do them, but our budgets tend to be, the advertising budget tends to be 50,000 plus per month, and we get paid on a percentage of that. So it tends to be medium to larger size clients. If you were trying to hire for Facebook ads, we've had a lot of, not luck, we've had a lot of good experience with people in the Philippines in particular. We've hired several people in the Philippines. I've used a service called Virtual Staff Finder. Virtual Staff Finder, yep.
Are you Facebook advertisement agent or not?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You said for 50,000 and above budgets.
Yeah, we do.
That disqualifies all of us.
It's a qualification.
not you.
Yeah, different client qualification. But Virtual Staff Finder, we've hired AdWords and Facebook experts there. So you can go out and do it yourself, finding people on Upwork, etc. That's fine. Virtual Staff Finder, I think, is $500, and they're basically a headhunter. They will bring you the resumes of 3 different people in the Philippines. You interview them yourself. You do all the checks. We've found they're really high quality. So $500 for that headhunting is nothing. Yeah, they've been great.
Yeah. How about the rebate? Because some music advertisement agent have the rebate to their users. Do you have any such rebate program?
Discounts from we do on Facebook, not on Google.
Can you explain what that is, please?
So at certain volumes, you can get discounts basically. So if you're running enough budget through your ad accounts,
you
also
get discounts from Facebook.
Yes, and then you can pass them on to clients, or not. Theoretically, you also get at higher levels, higher spend levels, you get dedicated account managers. You can actually call up Facebook, because Facebook has notoriously dreadful customer service.
Also, he used the word campaigns, right? And I know like what the Hellas campaigns. Like I feel like it's a buzzword used in marketing a lot, and I know it can mean like one thing happening, but I want to understand from a marketing perspective, why is a campaign different from just advertising for a particular product, right?
Sure. So I would say that campaigns are time limited, but they're not necessarily, because you can have something called an evergreen campaign, which triggers, it looks time limited to the person joining your campaign, but it's based on their join date. Sorry, it's overcomplicating things. Basically, a campaign would have a certain call to action, as you were saying. So the call to action would be, it's Fish Friday. So obviously it's on a Friday and it's for fish. So it's very specific. Whereas general advertising, you would tend to advertise your whole range of products. So you'd say, here's my restaurant, or here's my menu. So a campaign allows you to hone in on a particular item to make it special, to make it urgent, to make it scarce, which tends to work very well.
And I guess in relation to that, you may have different types of campaigns. So you may have an awareness campaign, you just want to build your brand, and hope you get some followers. You may have an acquisition campaign, so you want to get people into that funnel, you want to get customers, you want to get their contact details of some sort. You may have an activation, so you actually want them to do something.
Yeah.
You may not need buying, but you actually want them to do something. You may want them to actually buy something.
So the business goal. The business goal could be the campaign, right? You could build
a campaign is a very specific business goal generally. I was talking to, I forget her name, but she owns a clothes store. Yeah. So they, at the moment, it's communion time, or they're doing a lot of like Holy Communion dresses or clothes or suits. I don't know enough about it, but that would be an example of something that could be run as a campaign because it's that season. So you'd run specifically
for Christmas, Father's Day, Mother's Day.
Yeah, they're the biggies. Yeah,
got it.
They're the biggies.
In regards to campaigns, because these are things I do or have done, even I suppose without being conscious of it, because some of the products I sell or the things I do online are quite specific to either a niche or a season like that. But I find I find it's a little bit of a 50-50 thing in the sense that, for example, Valentine's Day. Yeah. So I did a pop-up. This is during lockdown. So I used to do pop-up restaurants with an accomplished chef in the Caribbean scene. We did, or attempted to do, a sort of stay-at-home, dine-at-home type of pop-up. So you buy a product. You buy a ticket. And all the ingredients get shipped to you. You join a Zoom. You kind of join the party online, cook along with your family at home. That sort of vibes. Yeah, lovely idea. Everybody loved it. Didn't sell. We couldn't. It just wasn't viable. Do you know what I mean? But the closer we got to it, it's just like we don't have to pull a plug on it because it's not. Do you know what I mean? Everyone loved the idea, but no one actually bought into the campaign, as it were. Do you know what I mean?
Which is all that matters.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's like because it's Valentine's Day, you've got a saturation. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this. Everybody's doing something for Valentine's Day, so it's obviously how do you kind of make yourself definitive in that space? And I suppose this kind of leads on to another question I got, which is relating to a friend. We've got a business yet to be launched as well, which is like a online subscription. I'm trying. I'm trying.
But which one?
It's like online well-being products, package subscription type of business. And again, obviously the online space is just oversaturated, especially with well-being stuff. How do you start with something that lots of people are doing without a huge budget? Where's the logical starting place?
That's a big one.
I have some thoughts on this.
Yeah. So on the first one, it's hard with certain events, timed events like that. You either go all in or you don't. Like owning the Valentine space. Hard. You're going to need a hell of a budget to do that because you're going up against big boys, so you need to outspend them. Certain events like Christmas or Black Friday in America, the ad spend just goes through the absolute roof, and trying to compete at those times, even if it's not your niche, not worth it. For something like that, I would, as you say, people can love an idea, but when it comes to actually purchasing it, Yeah. So you would do a minimum viability test. So the lean startup is a really useful model here, where you're validating ideas and you're validating each stage of the idea, but actually making people pay for it. Is really important. Sony, in particular, had this amazing market research they did where, do you remember those like Walkmans, and they were bright yellow? They had really colourful Walkmans and boomboxes and stuff like that. People would come into the market research room and be like, I love that, I love the yellow one, I love it. At the end of it, they're like, all right, you can take any one you want. Always took the black. They would take the matte black one, despite whatever they would say. So it's only when people actually come to, you know, having an action or having to actually pay for something that their real motivations come out. So if there's any way to test that beforehand, I know it's hard if it's Valentine's Day because it's either you do or you don't.
Well, it's events in general. You buy a ticket or they
Yeah. Yeah. So it's harder to test, but if there are ways, that would be like you could do a dating package, test out if people like that package, and then scale that up for Valentine's Day, potentially.
So I was actually going to plug my workshop that I'm doing, which is the last one here, which is specifically about how to test ideas and how to tell if your idea is not going to work. Specifically about that, and
before it gets expensive.
And to add to your, when is the date for that? That's the last workshop for here. It's based on the book The Mum Test, and it's based on Lean Startup. But to his point is the whole concept is based on the fact that people will lie to you. They just lie to you. Everybody lies to you when you tell them about your idea. Even when they buy the tickets today, 60 people bought tickets and 9 people are here, right? People will lie to you, and there's 4 ways of really testing whether they're serious or not, and it's their time, their money, their reputation, or 3. Those 3 are really the key, or they're advancing the sales process. So we'll talk about that. But I think to your first question, I think what I learned today, and my takeaway actually addresses your first point, which is that when you did the dinner, the cooking on Zoom, and I know that a lot of people said it was a good idea, but you tried to sell your product without building a tribe, right? Like you tried to sell it straight away, right? It's like here got it. So let me finish. So I hear you. I guess what I took away from here is a tribe of people that are currently care about the content that you're constantly putting out, right? So you're already on their minds for someone who is doing this. So if you had 10,000 people who are like, oh, this guy's always cooking, he's always creating content, and I love his cooking, it would have been easy to get 10 people to come rather than, oh yeah, I remember Andre used to do this a year ago or 2 years ago. Now he's selling a ticket for this thing. It isn't as engaging, and that, I think that's my biggest takeaway from this, is that distinction.
Do you know Inkspot Brewery up in Streatham? It's a local brewery. It's on top of Streatham Common. Every 2 months or so they do something called Shutters Up, where they literally raise the shutters and people can come and drink at the brewery. So it sells out immediately because they have so much goodwill from their beer sales and from their community, from their emails, etc., and social media, that as soon as they're like, we're doing it, just gone totally, because they have that kind of ongoing steady. Another great company is Lush, the cosmetic people. Whenever they release something new, sells out immediately, because they've created this rabid group of fans who would buy anything, absolutely anything. Yep. Yeezys, like there's a lot of different things.
He said rapid.
Yeah. Rabid is good. Rabid customers are good customers. Not rabies, but well, they're buying stuff. Yeah.
Stepping into the zone. The second question, I'll try and rephrase it. So we're starting up a new business called Maison Organique, which is an online-based well-being product and subscription service. We've got a few other little tricks we might try and play with in there. But essentially, again, how do we make a noise for ourselves in such a well-established, heavily dominated by the Whole Foods and the other sort of go-to well-being brands?
And do you have a war chest? Do you have cash?
Oh no, sorry. I thought you had a question. And then you covered it.
War chest. What's a war chest?
Cash.
Do we have cash? No.
Okay.
Sure. We don't have cash. If we did, yeah, we do.
So in a busy market, it's generally the person who can afford to spend the most on acquiring a customer who wins. So that's why the Coca-Colas, etc., can win, because they can just pump money out, and it's very hard to compete with that. Yeah. If you have a subscription that has it's either high value or a high profit margin subscription, or you have different ascensions, you can actually make quite a lot of money out of each subscriber. If you know your average lifetime value of that subscriber, it's risky, but you can work back to how much you can spend to acquire them. So if you know they're going to be worth £500 eventually, you can technically spend up to £500 acquiring them. Obviously, you have cash flow issues then, because that's going to be a lifetime value of that customer. But you need to work out how much that customer's worth before you work out how much you can spend on advertising to them. And if it is a high margin, maybe a luxury item, maybe there's enough there. The difficulty is always the bootstrapping at the beginning, though, because you need to get it going. You don't have the cash to get those first people. So, I mean, outside investment works if you have a model you can prove to people. This would come back to the MVP, the minimum viability product, or being able to prove this business model works. And then you go to somebody and say, look, this works, this is the margin, yeah, I need 30, 50 grand, and here's your return. Otherwise, you can bootstrap it, but it's going to be slow, really slow. Definitely go to Gerald, sir, because this is very relevant for a launch. Because if you can prove an opportunity, if you can prove an offer is going to work, you can go and get money. Capital is looking for places to be spent right now because there's no returns. Like, the bank's not going to give you anything, and we have inflation as well. So if you can go to somebody and offer a decent rate of return, yeah, no problem.